What is going on, everybody? I'm Mike Bunn, joined alongside Maniac, and we're talking some UB Bulls football today. We were off last week on a bye week with the team, but you know what? We got some big news today, Maniac. UB is getting a new video board, just proving that if you are willing to complain about something long enough, you can get anything that you want in life.
I mean, you got to think that Allnut heard the fans, and he's doing what he can to, furnish the amazing home field advantage that we're building at UB Stadium. Bun. Okay, so Lembo's good. This is literally the scoreboard that Lembo built off this 3-0 start. Looking forward to seeing it in 2025. Looking forward to seeing the new programming and the new kind of game day vibe that they're creating at UB Stadium around UB Athletics. By the way, I am at Sports City. Owner Mike Rizzo, where every day is game day. So it's fitting that UB is choosing today to do their scoreboard announcement. Can't wait to see that everything happens. And obviously, I hope it's amazing. I mean, this should be a high-quality piece.
Yeah, what are you expecting? Like the current one is so small, you can't even see anything. It hasn't been working in years. So this should be this has to be pretty quality overall. Do you have any expectations? How long? How big?
Yeah, when you're in section 300, you need like one of those, pirate, vision things to see what the scoreboard's going on. In my opinion, this is a great opportunity to work with some of the sponsors that UB had. They've had partners for 5 to 10 years. Let's build it as big as possible. Let's build it as bullish as possible. This thing should be huge, and it should also have a bull on top like the Buffalo Sabres. And when the Bulls get a sack, smoke should come out of its mouth, and it should go on fire. I like that.
They might need a few more donations to make that possible, but who knows? We can make that happen. And then that now starts the next priority, removing the track, Maniac. We now have to start that next initiative for UB.
Yeah, I've talked with some players about this specifically off the record, obviously. I'm not going to use any quotes here. The sentiment doesn't seem too bothered because there's a lot of program respect between, for example, like track, soccer, football, everything like that. They all respect each other. They won't say it out loud, but the fans are pretty clear. They want to get rid of the track. We got to find a way to do that. There's other furnishings that UB can utilize for that. We know there's the funding from the uptick in football as well. Again, I'm not pointing out stuff that everybody else doesn't already know. There's funding around here to make that happen, and I think that's a no-brainer if you want to make a jump up in seriousness. Because Pete Lembo, the thing that I really love about him, perception, he understands the importance that perception plays, even versus results necessarily. So I think that's something that could be on the docket, Mike. I think we could be looking at the track potentially gone. As crazy as it sounds, let's see, what would the timetable for that be? I think next 5 years.
I mean, one would hope, but who knows how realistic it is. And even if you do remove the track, what do you do? Like, how do you make the field closer to the action? Do you dig into the ground? How much would that cost? There's a lot of other things that would be involved. So I'm not one that expects it to be an easy fix, but who knows? I do want to show you this quick, Maniac. This is obviously not what it's going to look like, but I love when I see this photo of what UB Stadium would look like if the Bills gave their current video screen to UB Stadium. Here's the look. What are your thoughts on that, Maniac?
Yeah, that would be incredible. That would be such an upgrade. I think it's a no-brainer. Can we do that? Can we just move it out like a Craigslist ad or like on Facebook Marketplace?
Can the Bills just give their scoreboard away in a couple years? That way UB doesn't have to pay for one. Like, just make it like a charitable donation. I love this picture. It's so old. You still have the bleachers on the one side of the stadium, where obviously now you got the field house. So that's kind of funny to check that out. And we do got a quick comment from our boy Matt Perino.
Yeah, hold on. First off, I need your perspective. Do I sound like I'm underwater right now, or is this mic that bad?
No, you sound okay. You sound fine.
Yeah, Perino's a fucking hater. Get back to Wingnuts and go suck down some tangy Talbots, you little bitch. Yeah, that's what I thought, all right? You don't You don't come on
Stop
bullet
drinking,
points
Maniac. You
talking
gotta
shit.
stop drinking. You're having
You
a good
don't,
time.
you don't come on bullet points talking shit. And I'm sorry. With all due respect to everyone here at Sports 8, there was a massive ovation. It was a massive pop. That was a massive pop.
By the way,
now.
background noise, like this is one of our sponsors. We're
Yeah,
here having a
it's-
good time. It's not background noise, it's ambiance.
The
Perino.
only thing I take away from this is that Perino can't handle every day being game day. It sounds to me like he's just a soft little Sunday
He's
boy.
a mark.
Wow.
Little.
No, these are some strong words. And you know what? I love Matt Perino. So I got to stand up for him a little bit. I don't want hurt feelings on this show. But
No, we could have had such good vibes. We could have all been like enjoying the potential new scoreboard. Think about how good a Shout football podcast ad would have looked on that massive board bunt. But now we just have to talk about how Perino's hair looks like Jimmy Neutron's, and that's all we can really talk about because that's all it's allowed. But with that said, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that out loud. Okay. What we need to talk about is the UB regroup. Okay, we had this bye week bunt, and I think this team's better for it. Pete Lembo was talking at his press conference. He says these guys are just even keeled. There's no affecting them, whether it's coming off a big loss like they did to UConn. There's no denying it, or a big program win like NIU, or the big wins they've had at home against UMass and Lafayette this season. So super excited to see what comes next for this UB squad, because they are pretty decent underdogs, 8 to 9 points this week against Toledo, but looks like it could be a good fierce fight at home this week.
yeah, absolutely. And I expect it to be a competitive game. They were double-digit underdogs against NIU on the road. I felt good about that game, and UB ends up pulling off the upset. So I definitely don't think this is a game that you can just discount UB entering it. What I will say, I do want to spend just a minute on the UConn game. I know that was 2 weeks ago. That's ancient history at this point in time. What observations do you have from that game? And is there anything that you really think can carry into the future from that game?
Yes. The problem is that UB essentially has 3 really good games that you want to look to replicate what they did. And then they have 2 games where it's throw the film out and basically pretend like the game didn't exist. Unfortunately, Mike, I feel like that's the case. They got 2 30-plus point losses, and they got 3 wins. So at this, you got to fix the mistakes. You got to fix the shortcomings, obviously. But I do think that UConn game got a little bit out of hand, and they're obviously better than that result.
Another comment from Matt. Those Nooners got my guy shook right now. You know what? You look at the comments. We got a Matt Perino comment from Twitter and a Matt Perino comment from YouTube. He's
multi-screening. I don't blame him. He's probably got one screen where you're pulled up all the way, one screen where I'm pulled up. It's okay. It's good to have a huge fan like that, honestly, and it really means a lot of the program.
You know, Matt Perino is a huge fan of bullet points. You know, he might not say it to people, but we do. He's watching from every.
I think he's watching on MySpace. So I got to say, thanks him is Batavia Downs, the region's premier entertainment destination, and obviously one of our supporters here at Bullet Points. Maybe Saturday after the game, after you enjoy a beautiful UB upset win over Toledo, consider heading over to Batavia Downs. But Mike, what would be the key for that? Because right now, like I said, you got UB as 8 to 9 point favorites. A lot of talk this week around the passing game because I think the defense is steady. I think the running back production has been a little bit lacking, but steady. The passing game is ultimately at home. It's been great. And on the road, it's been basically non-existent.
Yeah, so the numbers are kind of interesting when you look at the home road splits. UB averages 32 points a game at home. They're averaging 8.7 points per game on the road. The passing game has been decent. I'll say adequate at home. Adequate is the word I'll use because it hasn't been good, but they've been able to get deep balls and create explosives at home quite a few times already. On the road, been non-existent outside of the one pass to Victor Snow against NIU. Also at home, I feel like you've had a little bit softer competition. Well, not a little bit, vastly softer competition playing Lafayette and UMass, while on the road you're playing schools like Missouri, NIU, UConn. So the competition level has been different. Toledo, I think, provides an interesting test because obviously going into the season, a lot of people think that the Rockets are one of the MAC favorites along with Miami, Ohio, and NIU, and probably Bowling Green at this point in time. But the Rockets, they've had good moments and they've had some not so good moments this year. They destroyed Mississippi State on the road, which is very impressive to go on the road to an SEC school and win by 24. But
I
then,
think we all agree for a MAC program, anyone who saw that score, that was a statement game, MAC versus SEC. But yeah, go on for sure.
But then they go on the road and they lose against Western Kentucky, which maybe will be a future MAC program at one point in time. And they play home against UMass this past week, and they win, but they don't really win in impressive fashion. 38-23, not really a blowout that you would expect. A UMass team that UB kind of handled at home. So that gave me a little bit more confidence. I know you don't want to do the, well, one team beat another team, so that means your team is going to be so much better.
No, Mike. Buffalo is better than Georgia. And if you don't acknowledge that, we have a damn problem.
Do you remember the tweet? Do you have that tweet?
I will get it pulled up momentarily. Go on, though.
But yeah, there's a lot of things about this matchup that I'm hoping UB can make it a competitive matchup. First off, you got to look at how UB's defense plays at home. They've been dominant. Sean Dolak has been incredible this year. Red Murdoch has been incredible this year. They're second and third in the nation in tackles for loss per game. Dolak is still leading the nation in tackles. This is an interesting stat. UB has actually won 3 of their last 4 against Toledo, which is something I probably wouldn't have expected. And UB is looking to go 2-0 in MAC play for the 3rd consecutive season. So what does UB need to do to keep this close? I think, first of all, they have to establish a ground attack. They cannot put things on CJ Agbana's shoulders. Whenever they try to become pass happy, that's when things look ugly. They need to be able to run the ball and to be able to kill clock, because Toledo's going to be putting up points in this game. I have no doubt about it. But UB needs to keep the ball out of their hands. And when they do have a chance to make shot plays and go vertical, you got to take advantage of it. And if they can do that, I think there's a possibility this could be a close game going into the late stages of the second half. But if they can't generate a run game, if they're putting everything on CJ Agbana to generate offense, it could also be a really long day for the Bulls.
Yeah, you've obviously seen up close and personal, being on the sidelines, for those UB offensive drives. They thrive when Agbana doesn't have to do much. He becomes a much better player when he gets in that comfort zone, when it's not asked of him, for sure. So that's obviously something you got to establish, whether it's the running game or whether it's making it easy on him with, quick hitters, quick decisions early in the passing game. On the flip side, I expect the defense to be aggressive. This is a unit that I bet you is frustrated and can't wait to get back out there after allowing 40+ to UConn. I think we all agree that it really wasn't a game where they got slaughtered and it should have been like that. I think the offense kind of left them out to dry a lot. With that said, they're looking to get back out there in the numbers. We got, obviously Red, we got Sean, and we got our guy Marcus Fuqua. I think we're due. I think we're due for a play from number 10, just like we might be due for a play from another Buffalo 10 come Monday night. I think this could be the perfect 10 Buffalo football weekend when it's all said and done, Mike.
Let's make it happen. And if Fuqua makes a play, then we'll get him on the pod next week. We'll talk about hopefully a UB victory over Toledo. And can you just imagine if that somehow would happen? 4-2, getting ready to you would already have wins over 2 of the top teams in the MAC. That would make things exciting. Here's the tweet I was talking about. Maniac, take it over.
Yeah, so you see the transitive. I'll let you go here. You get the Buffalo NIU Notre Dame. Once you get the NIU Notre Dame, everything becomes in play. Now, we will forget that Mizzou is in the middle here, and there's a little bit of a loophole, but you got Mizzou Vanderbilt, Bama, Georgia. So by transitive property, UB better than Alabama and Georgia so far in the college football season, which I don't think is something – Alabama and Georgia by many considered, top 2 teams. So very interesting and very hilarious there. But with that said, you were kind of alluding to it, and I want to jump back on it. The point about if you beat Toledo, you'll be 2-0 in the conference, and you'll basically have wins over 2 of the top teams. Now, again, I know Miami of Ohio. I know Ohio have traditionally always given these teams issues, or always given UB issues throughout the years. But that would be very interesting because this UB team has looked capable when given the opportunity. Again, they've let 2 games get away from them that were on the road, but who doesn't let games get away from on the road in college football?
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, if you ask me, do I expect UB to really compete for a MAC championship this year? My answer is no. Going into the year, I was hoping outside chance at bowl eligibility. At this point, 3-2, 7 regular season games left. I would hope and maybe even expect they'll get to 6 wins at least to get bowl eligible. But if you win this game, that's when your expectations really start to elevate to another level. I really haven't been overly impressed by Miami, Ohio so far this year. I thought they would be a contender going in. They haven't looked like one so far to this point. Ohio University is not what they typically are. They really lack a passing attack. Their defense is okay, but I don't think they're dramatically better than UB. The teams that I really look at in the MAC right now, and I say if you're going to be a contender, you got to get through them. I'm starting with Toledo. They're the best team in this conference. A win over them changes everything, in my opinion. Bowling Green has been special.
If Lembo's won, Agbana makes a spotty play here or there, Dolak plays out of his mind, they win 24-20. They survive a Toledo drive at the end, that goes turnover on downs at midfield. But it's a game that UB leads numerous times throughout because that's key. It's not like like the NIU game where they kind of snaked that one. If they can do that, where do your expectations shift for the remainder of the year?
I think if UB goes out and beats the Rockets, you're looking at a team that has the upside of possibly winning 7 to 8 games. I still think it would be a challenge to get to the MAC championship because I don't know if I believe that this team is talented enough to be consistent on a week-by-week basis. But if you beat Toledo and you're 4-2, there's no reason you can't go 3-3, 4-2 the rest of the season with weaker teams in the conference coming to UB Stadium. So I would probably put them at a 7-8 win team, probably finishing somewhere probably 3rd or 4th in the conference. Maybe they have an upside to get the 2, but it's my problem isn't that UB can't.
Even at 2-0 with wins over NIU and Toledo, you still can't throw them in the top 2.
Do you think they consistently do you think they have the ability to consistently bring it for the last 7 weeks of the season?
Here's my take on what I've seen, Michael. When you don't have a program that's in a little bit better shape than UB, I think Lembo can muscle you. I think he can game plan you. And I think they got the spotty playmakers on both sides of the ball, as we saw in NIU. And as we saw when they kind of jumped on them and took advantage against UMass, where they can kind of hit you in the mouth. And then once they hit you in the mouth, Lembo is just a coach's coach. He's just a guy talking to coaches every day. Like he's not the game day kind of gaffes that we seen in past years. Those things can be really something this year. I'm very optimistic and bullish on this team, and you know that.
Bullish, obviously pun intended by you. But you know what? Okay, if we're talking maximum, if we're talking maximum upside, if they beat Toledo, that pizza looks great right now. I'm honestly jealous of you. I've been podcasting for an hour and 20 minutes straight on 2 different things and haven't eaten yet.
That's why they call you the grinder. That's why they call him the grinder.
But I guess, you know what? Upside, they could be 8-9. Maybe they can get to the MAC championship. But that wouldn't be assuming the offense somehow finds a rhythm that they haven't found so far this season. The reason why they look great at home and the reason why they look awful on the road is because they've been 2 different units depending on where they're playing. I don't know if I trust this offense completely to where they can put together 7 solid performances. I think this defense is good enough. UConn was a tough game, but I think most MAC opponents are going to struggle to score against the Bulls defense. But if I was a betting man, I'm thinking most likely this team is going to be a 6-7 win team. Maybe they can make it 7 or 8. You can talk to me in a week. If UB beats Toledo, depending
now that you have the win over NIU though, the Toledo game is at the perfect part in your schedule though. Home, early, so you can coming off a bye. The Toledo game is literally in the perfect spot, Bunty. And then like I said, once you get into that grind of the MAC schedule, they'll be able to win 1 or 2 MAC away games. The 2 away games for them were not set up to win this year. Mizzou, come on. And then UConn, who's basically got one of the craziest home run schedules we've ever seen, right? 5 straight home games, of which UB was the second. So they're home for a month and a half. It's insane. So they're very comfortable. They're sleeping in their bed every night, versus a team that's got to go on the road. That has an effect. Versus once those other MAC teams start doing that every week, playing on Tuesday nights, all bets are off.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously something to factor in. I guess what I'll say now, I don't want to rule anything out for this team. Let's take it week by week, see where they take it. A lot of times that's how it works in the MAC. You go into a season, maybe there's low expectations, and then they surprise you, and then you're entering week 9, week 10, being like, how the hell is this team 6-3? And we're right in the middle of it. And next thing you know, you're in the MAC championship game. So maybe let's not rule it out yet. But
all I got to say real quick, too, is just remember this, is that I believe we discussed it preseason. They were like 45-1 to win the MAC or something. So I think if you beat Toledo, you want to talk about expectation shifting. At most, that's like 10-6-1 or something like at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think this UB team is good. What I'm trying to do is balance my expectations versus what I think the reality of their situation is. All offseason, I was talking about how the vibes were better with this team. I thought coaching alone could probably get them a 1 or 2 win bounce, a boost to get to maybe 4 or 5 wins, because I thought Maurice Linguist struggled so much as a head coach that he probably cost them games. And I thought, okay, you get Pete Lembo. This guy is experienced. He knows what he's doing. He'll probably get you an extra couple victories on the schedule.
By the way, calling a spade, has the Bama defense ever looked worse in back-to-back weeks? Just a spade. Like, honestly.
No, did Bama ever lose to Vanderbilt before Maurice Linguist was coaching their defense? I don't know. But what I will say, I think this team has the ability to put something special together this season. Special, everybody might have a different opinion on what that is. For me, that'd be getting to a bowl game. For others, maybe that's getting the MAC championship. But they have to, before we could even talk about MAC championship, they would have to get past Toledo. And let's just talk a little bit about the matchup against the Rockets. As you said, currently 9-point underdogs against Toledo. And we're talking about a Toledo program that's also possibly being courted by the Mountain West Conference right now as a football-only member. Them and NIU are being looked at by the Mountain West. So that's some interesting stuff to talk about. But right now, for Toledo, their quarterback is Tucker Gleason. He's a junior. He's passed for 1,180 yards this year, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's their key player on offense. They have a running back committee, really not one go-to guy in the backfield. Jerwan Newton and Junior Vanderross III are their top receiving targets. Anthony Torres.
I'll stop you real quick here, a third of the way in. To quote Coach Lembo from his presser yesterday, Toledo does everything well, and they do it in bunches.
They do. And then Anthony Torres is a dangerous tight end in the red zone with 5 touchdowns. Brandon Alls is a ball hawk at safety, 3 interceptions. Toledo enters this game with the most interceptions this season in the MAC. But you're going up against a Buffalo team that really doesn't pass a ton. But I guess if I'm UB and I'm going into this game, as I said a little earlier, need to establish the run. This game needs to be played in the low 20s for UB to have a chance at winning it. And I think it's going to be that way for most games that UB plays this season. Anything beyond 25 points is probably going to be a loss for UB most games this season. So find a way to hold Toledo under 25. You give yourself a chance of winning. Anything 25 and up, you probably have a good chance of losing.
I listen, I do not know anything. I haven't, I did not see anything at practice. I'm not revealing anything. Hand to God, on every team and everything that I love. I mean, you got to think trick play this week, right? Coming out of a bye, underdog at home. Like if you're a coach's coach, Lembo, that's a absolute forecast for trick play.
I would think so. I would definitely think that's a possibility. I wasn't at practice this week. I haven't seen anything. Obviously, even if I did, I wouldn't say anything because.
Oh, if I thought there was a trick play, I wouldn't say ab diddly squat on the broadcast. I want UB to win every single time, and I want the Bulls to have prosperity unlike we've ever known.
So this is how I feel about this game. I feel less confident in UB this game than I did the NIU game. I didn't really believe the Huskies were as good as what the hype was surrounding them. The Notre Dame win was impressive. It was a great victory, one of the best wins you'll ever see in the MAC, maybe the best regular season win in MAC history. But I thought that was a little bit of a one-time fluke performance overall. A Notre Dame team with a new quarterback, a transfer from Duke, who got off to a slow start to a season, and they really weren't on the same page with their guys. And NIU just happened to be the team that made enough plays to pull out a win. With Toledo, I see a team that's been consistently good for several years, a program that's been better than NIU by quite a bit for several years, and I'm a little bit more worried that they can get things done in the pass game. NIU really didn't exploit UB in the air a ton, and they had a good running back. Toledo, it's more passing wise. Can UB limit their passing attack? I don't know. If they can, it could be a ball game. If they can't, it could be a little bit of a runaway. But we'll see.
I think UB will be in upset territory this week for sure. I do love the high regard you hold Toledo in. Coach Lembo does the exact same thing. So very interested to see where this one goes.
I'm just trying to get a job from Coach Lembo. Honestly,
shush!
I just want to be. I want to be Coach Bunt. Give me a UB football assistant job.
Coach Bunt would be amazing. But I'll tell you something amazing for Toledo. And it was mentioned by Coach Lembo again at his press conference because these are the things he focuses on. He runs up like all these things that mean a lot to him. The Toledo punt returner is currently averaging 19 and a half yards per return punt. So you want to talk about a threat back there. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to win if you're UB, you got to either not punt or we're talking directional punts in that win for sure. And that's a big factor. So keep an eye on those punts this weekend.
That's definitely a good tidbit. And we're close to the half an hour point, which means it's time for us to wrap up and give our predictions. So, Maniac, I'm going to start with you. Who wins this game and why?
Toledo's really good. You got to respect them. They got playmakers all over the field. But so does the Bulls. They just haven't emerged yet, and this is their chance to do so. The Rockets, against these Rockets, they are going to rocket up the charts on ESPNU this weekend. Give me a Bulls upset 23-21 UB.
I like the optimism. I unfortunately do not share all of that optimism. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it's going to be a decent game. The line being at 9 is tricky to me. What did you think it would be going into this week?
7.5.
Really?
Yeah. You got to remember Vegas is stubborn. So they thought UB was kind of stinky coming out at the beginning of the year. They're still on that thought for sure. They think Toledo's good. They saw Toledo beat an SEC team too.
See, I'm trying to think of it from – so now it's up to 9.5 right now. I'm trying to see what it actually opened at. But my thinking is the average college football fan probably thinks that Toledo is probably, 10, 11 points better than UB. And the line is 9.5. So my thought process is if I'm just a generic football fan and I'm betting this game, I'm probably going to put my money on Toledo to cover and probably win 30-20. But then I'm overthinking it. And I'm thinking, is Vegas trying to set up a trap? Is this going to be one where, UB stays within that 9.5?
The great thing, this is a
7-20 game written all over.
I could see this being a 20-point UB loss based on what you've said, or I could see it being a 2-point UB win based on what I've seen. I feel like there's a big range. And let's face it, if you're a bettor, you're looking at the scores. You're like, oh, let me see what UB's done. Well, they beat NIU, who beat Notre Dame, and then they lost to UConn by 44. So it's not exactly an easy one to figure out.
So I'm normally really good with totals. I'm not good with the spread, but I'm very good with picking totals. But I'm not an over person. I'm normally a team under. I pick unders a lot because I think Vegas takes advantage of people that get all excited about seeing quarterbacks in offense, and they use that against people. I'm going to say that UB keeps it within the 9. So Toledo's going to win the game, but it's going to stay within the 9. It's going to be a 27-20 victory for Toledo, and I'm going to take the over 44.5 points.
I like it. Let's go.
But we'll see how it plays out. Kickoff noon on Saturday.
Supposed to be beautiful. We were there on Tuesday, and we were talking.
ESPNU. So get up early, turn on the U, watch some UB football as they try to get to 4-2. And let's be real, if they get to 4-2 with wins over NIU and Toledo, God, we're going to have to be thankful for Pete Lembo. It just shows how much coaching really makes a difference. We're playing with UB's backup quarterback from last year. We have a chance to surpass their win total in week 6. That's quite the impressive thing to look at. But that'll
Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide. Yeah. No, we should just – no, I'm not going to say what I was
No,
saying.
it's not anything win, but let's face it, we've talked to players. The player vibe is way better. We've talked to coaches. Coaches seem to have a much better idea of what's going on and communication, and there seems to be a much more fluid and obvious plan to everything versus, it was just all talk and fluff. That's all.
It's one of those things where it's a shot to the ego to see your coach choose to leave, but it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to UB football, to have Pete Lembo take over. But that's going to do it for Maniac and myself. Let's go Bulls.
Oh.